So the process from that email basically is this. You're invited into the eligibility period on Friday. And then what happens is on the 18th, there's a meeting for, I think there were 10 towns, if I read that correctly, something along that, where they have basically instructions for the next, what happens next. What does the eligibility period mean? So I have some homework for everybody. And I know some of you have already done some serious due diligence on this. The MSBA website is actually full of information, and it's really good because you can follow it pretty well, but it's wordy, and there's forms and links, but what it does is it talks about what groups like us need to go through in order to get a school built. Okay, so my homework, please, is at a minimum, if we could all read through kind of module 1 and 2. So if you look at, and just Google Massachusetts School Building Authority. I wish I had more time today. It got away from me. I have gone through it multiple times prior. There's plenty of people who have much more experience at doing the MSBA. I built things, right? Typically, the projects that I do are not public. So other than my experience in the last time on this board, my MSBA experience is fairly minimal. But the website's really good, and it walks you through the steps. So what I'm asking all of us to do, which candidly, a lot of us didn't do last time, so we had to be very strong board members, committee members on the last school go around that did this for a living, right? So they knew the steps, they knew exactly how long you had, they knew all this stuff. Candidly, we don't, with the exception of maybe Leo or Jeff obviously knows this better than I do. Like in this room, we don't have a ton of that experience. So if we could all read up on that. There's links, there's forms. Some are 2 pages, some are 50 pages. You know what I mean? I don't think you need to read every, letter. But what happens next? So there's modules throughout the MSBA process, and this will get explained to us on the 18th. I assume that's kind of what I understood as the email of what the next step is. And so the eligibility period is module 1. So everyone has to go through the process of MSBA. And, obviously we'll have to vote if we do get invited officially to join the MSBA. That's part of it as well. So there's some things that we'll have to do in the short term, which are mostly functional stuff. But I'll just tell you what they are. So eligibility period has 7 items. We have to certify that the district understands the grant program. We have to form a school building committee. That's done. But then we have to submit that membership to MSBA. We have to complete an educational profile questionnaire to further inform the MSBA's understanding of the district's current proposed educational facilities, teaching methodology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, grade configurations. A summary of the district's existing maintenance practices. And if you click on each of these, it like gives you like what to fill out. It's like I said, it's well done. Certificate of design enrollment for the proposed project. I think we have some good information on that from 2 sources. We have to confirmation of community authorization and funding to proceed. That we can talk a little bit more about. And then execution of MSBA standard feasibility study agreement, which establishes a process for the district to be reimbursed eligible expenses. We'll have to talk to them about that because we won't get reimbursed for a feasibility study. Because we already.
So Mike, they said that would be on the letter they send us, that'd be explicitly written on there that MSBA would not be doing that.
Okay, good.
For this feasibility study.
So, so anyway, I don't think we should dig into it too much right now, other than please read it. I would endeavor that we meet in early January. The holidays are literally upon us, so maybe we get together like the week of the 6th or something like that.
8th
right?
would be our standing.
Yeah.
Typically, we do the first Wednesday, but that's a holiday.
And really start diving into what do we have to do. The eligibility period itself lasts 270 days. I will tell you that it can go quicker because most of these things are done, so that's good. The MSBA meets board meetings monthly, I believe. So if you get everything in before then, at their board meetings, they can get you to that. Yeah.
So my couple of things on that, because they have so many schools in this time, and what they've learned over the years is that in order to make it more efficient on their end, they want to stagger different schools for different starting times.
Mm-hmm.
So our 270 won't start in December. It's going to start in April.
April.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that they suggested to us was to spend the time from January to April to look at the existing feasibility study that we've done. And they suggested, we do it any way we want to do it, they suggested looking at it in terms of 3 buckets. Items we can definitely use going forward, that makes a lot of sense, that still makes sense to us, that is still relevant because it's less than 5 years. Items that we can use with some adjustments, and items we're going to toss out completely. And if we are able to do that in the time frame of January to April, then that gives us pretty good negotiating power when we're looking at design team and OPM, because we're not going to need a full feasibility study. We shouldn't need one anyway, based on what we've done before. So like for example, you folks have voted for WheeLocks. Everything to do with feasibility on WheeLock, we should just toss out, right? I mean, you guys would, Dale,
Yeah,
excuse me.
right.
Anything that we do with WheeLock should be out of that feasibility. So just kind of go through that process with, month by month, and go through it and try to establish those 3 buckets. And their opinion was that would set us up for better negotiating power when we go to the
Start
OPM.
getting into the next model.
Yeah, because what we want to be able to do is say, we just had this done less than 5 years ago. We should be able to use this. And we paid for this. We should be able to use some of this or most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't, and if you're not willing to do that, then maybe you're not our OPM or designer board to use. So
I think that was my outstanding question, is how much of we can use.
we have to decide that.
Because it is under 5 years. I mean, because we're paying for it, Jeff, can we engage in the RFP process? I know it's pretty strict on their paper and everything else, but would they allow us to start that OPM and designer paperwork as well? I mean,
I don't know.
I believe we hire an OPM first, then a designer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do we start the OPM process
So
knowing it's going to be truncated because of all that past work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a question for the 18th, and especially since we're going to be the clock starting in April for us.
Yeah.
That does give us time to review all that beforehand, which I think makes a lot of sense. But I think those are questions you're going to have to ask them. I don't know.
I think that helps us up the timeline. If, like you said, get our money's worth out of all of what we already paid for, they already paid for,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's one of the reasons why it's been 3 years now. So, and then we are able to hit that ground running right in April, right?
Mhm.
And that pushes up. We get 270 days. It doesn't matter. Maybe we can be way ahead of that.
Mhm.
Because time is money here. So
Sure.
So the OPM is in module 2. So the feasibility study agreement has to be filled out in module 1. Module 2 starts with hiring an OPM, then designer selection, and that's how that goes, Leo.
Yeah.
So yes, obviously, as far as I assume all of us are concerned, and I know we want to get those people on board as fast as possible because that's where the real work happens, right? But these first 7 parts of the eligibility period, we're going to have to dive into. And I don't disagree with what you guys think. That's a great idea because it kind of does set us up.
That's not for me. That's their advice to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is, Christine, maybe you can help me with this. Part of, and I assume that we'll have a contact at MSBA that can help us navigate this process. In order to get to phase 2, you need to have the money to pay for a feasibility study. That's how I understand it. The money's got to be fully funded. How much money do we have right now? Should have asked. I should have given you a text.
Give me a few minutes. I'm trying to start the energy committee. Frank gave me one job today, and so let me start the energy committee. And I can do that.
I think it was $250 and $500. I think $750,000, if I remember correctly, for the last 2 town meetings. We've spent a little bit of that with Constant Contact, as well as
Constant Contact, Medfield TV, and your minutes. So
Yeah.
it's a small.
and then
amount.
one more on the
Oh, and the feasibility. The Enrollment.
The enrollment cost,
So
right.
I can get you a whole thing.
So maybe let's call it $20,000, right? $725.
What's the estimate?
Yeah, so that's probably what we have. I made a couple
Are you-
phone calls. Go ahead.
My memory is that the first appropriation was more than 250.
The first one was 500 and the
The,
last.
the last one was 500, I thought.
It was 255.
Give me 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and I'll
we'll get those in.
Okay.
5 minutes.
How about this? Currently, I don't think that we have enough money for feasibility study. So, it's December, we have town meeting in May. Okay, so part of what we, I think, need to do is make sure, verify how much money we have, what do we need, the estimates that I got are about $1.5 million.
We just went through this process, the project I'm working on, and we came up with highs and lows, we put it in at 1.35,
Yep.
and that included a geothermal survey. So that geothermal survey is about 150,000.
Okay,
So, so give or take around that.
that survey can happen after the fact too.
With that,
The survey for geothermal can happen after.
it is, but we took into consideration in that number. So
Okay.
that got approved, but that was, obviously, MSBA will not comment on it.
Yep.
About it. So, I'm curious out of that, how much of it we get to reuse, right?
Yeah, so
And then how much we need to ask for.
it's a really good question, and I don't have those answers, and I think, and I know MSBA won't give us those answers either.
I just was wondering,
Maybe we can get Tim Bonafati in
who
here.
can we buy the advice from on what we need?
Well, we have a
can-
couple residents who were on our board last time, and I would say, Tim and Mike do this for a living. Tim,
They're willing to do it, yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's who I talked to, was Tim. He said $1.5 million. He said also Medfield's a little scary for design firms, OPMs right now, because we built the last boat, candidly. So, the feasibility study process, that whole year-long engagement plus is kind of a loss leader for them. They spend a lot of time and money up front, and they basically make their money when the project proceeds. That's why it's scary for these firms to work with towns. This is just hearsay right now. I'm just telling you like what I've been told.
Yeah, that's what I was told.
Okay, so
So like one of the other things they told us was that they will pair us and connect us with communities that have had feasibility studies done on elementary schools in the past 3 years. So that we can take a look at what those costs would be and try to adjust them to our costs based on what we're gonna use from the previous. So we could be able to figure that, we should be able to figure that out between January and April, prior to town meeting.
yeah, I just
What
want to
that
get on. I
cost.
just want to make sure we get on the.
Yeah.
I think that number could probably be filled in last minute, and again,
Mhm.
Christine can probably help me with this. As long as we have that warrant article, it's going to be in town meeting in May, and then that final number gets settled, because I think that makes or break our 270-day window, right? If you don't get the money in May, the only other time to do it is a special town meeting, right? So, candidly, I think that this is priority number one. Other than, we have other things we can do too.
Right, Mike, so you're saying that 1.5 is for like town just starting, that is kind of what a full feasibility costs? All right, and so we have pieces of it, so there's some potential that we can spend less, because we're saying to someone, look, we've got some parts done here, so we only need you to do these 3 parts, with that. But you don't think, all that being said, and we don't exactly know what those parts are at the moment, I get that. You still don't think what we have is enough, we'll have to ask for more.
That's correct. Yeah, definitely. So, and I was just rereading the notes I had on it. Yeah, and then also, if it's somebody else's work, you know what I mean?
They may not, they wanna do it all themselves.
That's all.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it can't be verified and just make sure that it's correct, that type of stuff.
Okay.
I think we need to plan worst case.
Yeah.
If we get money for a feasibility study, and I don't know how an RFP is written like this, is it with a dollar figure on it? I don't actually know how that goes. Typically, I think it is. You kind of say this is what it is, and then you interview a couple of firms for that fee.
Which in mind, it's a very scripted, actually entering this process right this second. So it's extremely scripted by MSBA to follow that form for. They're calling it an RFS actually, but it's really an
Okay.
RFP. But the way it's designed, because you should be able to turn down an RFS requires you to take the lowest bidder, whereas an RFP you can reject people for any particular reason. Like we had you last time, we don't want you again, even though you're the lowest bidder. So, but there it is pretty scripted. And you're supposed to, use their template for that process.
Yeah, they just revised it in April, I'm looking at it here. Regardless, we have a little bit of time on it. The one thing it doesn't have is, dollars and cents, so that's good, Jeff. We'll have to talk to some other towns, especially if one of those towns maybe had one within the last 5 years too, even better, right? All right. So, candidly, I think we're in a. I'm excited. We finally, this is good news. But next steps. I think we all read through MSBA's site. Like, give yourself probably a couple of hours. Break it up, whatever you got to do. But specifically, module 1, module 2. Okay, understand what that is. And then we can talk about that at our next meeting. Also at our next meeting, like Jeff said, maybe we can start picking apart the old feasibility study. What I'll do in the meantime is send all of you just a link to it. It is posted. If you search on the Medfield side, I think it's Dale Street Elementary School Projects 2018 or something like, it's labeled something like that. Feasibility study. It's like 800 and whatever pages. There's a lot to it. There's some really good stuff, some other stuff that's just mandatory, that type of thing, those types of things. Might as well have a look if we're gonna start picking it apart. I'm sure there's half of it that's we could say we can reduce, but that doesn't mean, I just don't know how much it's gonna save us in dollars and cents. I need somebody to help tell us that, quite frankly. And then the warrant, article that I think we're gonna need more money. And obviously, the meeting on Friday as well as the meeting on the 18th. What I'll do is I'll be at both. I'll take notes and shoot you guys a summary if you can't be there, and if you can be there, great. If not, I'll still shoot out some notes.
You could send out information about the 18th meeting if I'm able.
Yeah.
Like to.
I can do that. Okay. Questions, comments, other things to discuss regarding MSBA? I think it's good news, right?
Yeah.
Can we take
Yes.
a minute and celebrate?
I appreciate you.
We've got like $20 million, guys.
Hopefully more. Yeah,
Hopefully
maybe.
more.
I mean,
Like, I feel like we're still waiting on Friday, but like, this feels awesome.
yeah, it does.
You guys have done a lot of hard work to get this here.
Yeah, thanks. I agree. I think this will actually get us moving forward. So I feel like we've been kind of stagnant. We've been trying our butts off. Don't get me wrong. We've been communicating. We've been, you know what I mean. We've been doing some stuff, which is, I think, maybe that helped us, right? But now we've got work to do, which is good. So I'm really excited to get some of this going. All right. What else? Leo, I have a question on that, just real quick. I had a call with someone from the Energy Committee. On those geothermal wells, why was that part of the feasibility study? On those geothermal wells, why was that part of the feasibility study? Is that because the town said we're definitely going to do this? And
Oh, that was part of ours.
yeah,
We have a energy committee as well. Because of the projected cost savings, the town is very invested in solar power and other energy saving measures. We have an extremely large solar array on all the school campuses,
Okay.
town campuses in both towns. To the tune of generating millions and millions over 20 years.
Mhm.
So, so geothermal, I believe, is another option.
okay.
We have a campus model as well, so although it could be built for that, it'll test the area for the other schools as well, for other upgrades.
I was just wondering, 'cause I know we were talking about that in the last building, but it didn't come up at the feasibility, so. Yeah,
I don't remember, did we drill test well, the geothermal well? Last time? I don't recall.
Both.
I feel like we did.
I feel like we did, I feel like we did a couple of tests well to make sure we could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the part, we have to drill so many tests, that's why, to make sure you can do the system.
Yeah, I think it's,
I'm assuming you did it just at Wheelock?
Yes.
yeah, and then,
Good point.
yeah, yeah, it's at some point. I will tell you, geothermal is very challenging to do if you do an ad reno, because it's an existing concrete structure. And if we don't know if we're doing an ad reno or a new building, and it's quite costly to do up front, there's lots of cases to be said that it's much more cost efficient over the long run. I actually did talk to Megan Sullivan this week. She's an old energy commission member, and I told her that whoever's on the energy commission now should get in front of us at some point, mid next year, to have that discussion, lay out kind of like what the Medfield Energy Commission should hear from them at some point. That's why that comment was timely. All right, so we have some homework. I'll shoot you guys emails if you can't be there. Like I said, Friday, next Thursday, I believe it is.
Probably
Wednesday.
this Friday, next one.
Questions, comments? Excited? Yeah, Taylor, go ahead.
Is it worth talking about now a communication plan or kind of touch points for the town? I mean, I'm sure people are excited to hear there was something on Facebook, cryptic email from last night, or the letter from the MSBA. But what's the plan to start getting people engaged? I mean, obviously this is fresh news, but coming out of Friday, and then presumably we're gonna have a yes. So.
That's a great segue into our next agenda
All right,
meeting.
sorry.
Subcommittee.
Maybe I should read the agenda.
We've had some further discussions on that too, but that's, what's the timing of it, number one, right? And when do we want to say something to me? I mean, we can say we're on the agenda now, it's not a big deal. You have any ideas?
Well, yeah, those are actually my questions for this evening is, what do you want to say? So I can put out another email update with constant contact. I would wait till Friday just for safety's sake to let you vote. But I can put it out Friday or Saturday. Skip all the time to look at it with me. But I'm not clear as to what, how we would like to frame it. I mean, I think it'd be great to give a very wide idea of timing. And, like, in past experience, how long would this take before we came to the town with a proposal kind of thing? Just roughly, do you know what I mean? I'd like to put that in the update, if you think that's appropriate. But I don't want to misrepresent the kind of timeline. I would say that we are thrilled that we're invited in, right? So everybody would be on
Yes.
that
Yes.
language,
so far.
okay?
I think a confirmation email that's happened.
Yes,
I wouldn't put any timelines of dates.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things that we need to do as well is we do have a meeting, a joint meeting, I believe, coming up with Board of Selectmen, or
I think so, right?
is that?
Then we had talked about.
are we in our 6 months, we need to go talk to them? When's the last time last time I went?
Was it May, June?
Was it summer?
You can come in January 7th or January 21st.
There you go. You know what, put us down for the 7th, because I think the bylaw says 6 months, and I think I was there.
So that'll be
June.
before we're gonna meet though, so.
Yeah,
Under the
we're gonna meet the
circumstances, I think it's a good idea. Only because I think some of the things that I worry about is to making sure that we have a united front with the community, including the Board of Selectmen. I don't feel like there was 100% buy-in by the Board of Selectmen in the previous projects, and I think we should make sure that that's the case this time.
All
So,
three of them were very excited when we forwarded them the email. So.
so I could frame it as we've been invited, but we actually need to take a vote, right? That's what you said, Mike?
Not like tonight, but at some point we'll have to vote.
At some point, the SBC, once we get further in, we'll take a vote on accepting the invitation. My wording that is gonna give me some kind, yeah, that's. how
Yeah, I
it's
guess.
worded.
I don't know if it's
gets
our
very
vote or school
confusing.
committee's
It
vote.
gets very confusing on the public when you start telling them there's a vote.
Yeah,
Don't
And
do that.
it's supposed to be the board that's, or the committee that's voting, that
Yeah.
gets very, very confusing.
okay.
So just be careful with that language.
I
almost
Carolyn, especially, I think less is more.
Yeah.
You know, we are so excited to report
Yeah.
that the
Oh, what's
MSBA
that?
has invited us
Okay.
after Friday. So the MSBA has invited us to participate. We anticipate that this means that the MSBA, that further down the road, we may have access to $23 million or perhaps even
Be
more.
careful with the dollar.
But it is a long process, and
Well,
we
in
will
the
of course keep the community posted.
In the last update, because part of what I wrote was that we're waiting to hear that we get approximately 20 million based on it. So, you know, I can just sort of reiterate that and say nothing else.
If they wanna know more, they gotta sign up for the constant contact.
Yeah,
and
just
spread
follow
that.
us. It's gonna get busy.
I think too, we can use the holidays, like, we got this great news, we're coming upon the holidays, we're gonna have a meeting in early January, we'll have more information. 'Cause
Yeah,
I-
on the
like,
process.
a lot of people are gonna miss this just because of how crazy it is between
Yeah.
now and the first,
Right.
so I think simple, brief, no dollar
I'm
amount.
sending one to all parents on Friday.
We've got a meeting Friday, a meeting next Wednesday, we all have
Official
homework to
report.
do. After January 8th, we'll give you a more detailed.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it
Wait,
really
one
was,
second, Jeff, I kind of missed what you said.
I said, when it's official on Friday, I'm sending them out to all the parents too.
Oh, you are sending
am,
that
yeah.
out too. Okay, so if we put the
It'd be
update out.
very,
It'd be-
just the facts,
The
man.
thing we've been trying to do with.
It ought to be the same message.
why don't you just,
Right.
what,
Yes.
I mean,
Make it the same.
I would copy and paste.
Yeah.
Will you,
Then we're,
since I'm not a parent in school, can you just forward me what you write and
Mhm.
I'll use.
There you
take
go.
that stuff.
and there's
Thank you.
no
Thank you.
chance
I
of
think that
conflict
that's
or anything.
I was gonna say exactly what Bob said, like just facts.
Right.
Assuming everything goes fine Friday, we should think we're going. We've been invited to the eligibility period. We can like link to the MSBA, where, I don't know, whatever we wanna do extra, like maybe link to the
Module one,
MSBA
MSBA.
website. What's that?
Help it, get informed, module one, MSBA.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Print it.
I just think that's the news, right? That's the news. I mean, the reality is this is the hard step. If you follow all their procedures and get a town that supports you to vote for the money for the feasibility study, for, you know,
Proposal.
and then you get to the point where you're actually, you know, building a building, like, that's the second hard step. Those are really those are the three things. Getting in now, and then it's money for feasibility, money for school. Those are the hurdles. We've got through one, which I think is awesome. The rest of it's hard work, but it's not like,
I mean, I think it's a big hurdle. I think there's probably a lot of people in town that, having gotten the money last time and rejected it, would also feel like if we didn't get this money today, going it alone ourselves would be
Yeah.
why not wait till next year and try
Exactly.
again? You know, like, I think it's the,
100%.
I think we didn't get that probably from some of the surveys. I'm not sure if it was.
We did get a little bit of people just feeling like we missed the boat because the other project,
Yeah.
and we weren't gonna get back in. That's-
So I think having gotten back in, I think that's a really positive sign that folks are gonna be excited about, and that's should be a big relief for everybody.
Just for public information, so I always put in the next meeting, so we're doing our January regular Wednesday meeting, I think we said the 8th it was, Meredith?
Well, our regular meeting would be the first, I just threw the 8th out there because this group seems to like Wednesdays, so
All
I
right.
just picked the next Wednesday, but if that
So
doesn't work. for people,
January 8th is
whatever.
everybody,
We could get a TV in here, we could watch a bowl game. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Now you think.
and Mike, I'm just wondering, does it
But,
make sense just for all of us in terms of what we need to do in our learning process to do more than one meeting a month? Sorry to say that, but.
We talked about that in January.
Yeah.
I just wanted, if we could get it on
Yeah.
the books,
Talk
and
about it.
Just think about it.
it just
I'm
seems
not
like,
against it if we have certain things to do.
Yeah, there'll be a time where we do need to start meeting more, I guess. I'd be curious more looking at the bigger timeline from now until the vote and understanding, you know, when you have those pieces that actually do require a lot more meeting versus just stating we're gonna start meeting more to meet more. Does that make sense?
Mhm. I think if we have the time from now to January 8th to review modules 1 and 2, to your point, we can all then have maybe a little bit of a better idea of that exact point, and then know where we gotta put those in.
I think,
Yeah.
I think once we have real work to do in front of us, and it needs to be done with deadlines, we'll meet as often as we have.
Okay.
Candidly, I'm not a fan of meeting just to meet, it's just how my brain works, but, I can be shut down, so I'm not,
Well, I was just trying in terms of people and their schedules. to
Yeah.
just
yeah, so I think
about-
step one is let's talk about it in January 8th.
Okay.
And see what we have in front of us, right? If we think that we really want to dive through this feasibility study and have something before April, and it's going to take us more than 3 months or 3 separate meetings with individuals in groups, not a quorum, but individuals and groups working independently and then coming together, then that's what we'll have to do. Make sense? I mean, maybe we look at the feasibility study, we say, all right, you 4 get pages 1 through 100, you get pages 2, I mean, right? That's
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
That's why if we all read it in between now and the next meeting, or at least go through it, it's probably, I know, because there's table of contents, you can break it up in some pretty meaningful ways that, we could probably say, this can be reused, none of this can, this can, that may not be an issue. So,
Just to clarify, you guys are gonna meet with the select board on the 7th, and then you're gonna have your own meeting on the 8th.
Or do we wanna do our 8th meeting, then go to the Board of the Selectmen after we've? Is there a big difference with that, Christine? Is it, we losing something by not doing 7? I just think if we come up with some, if you got new information between now and the 8th, and we talk about it on the 8th. But we've already been to the board 24 hours prior.
I was just thinking it was gonna be very quick, like, we're in, which they already
Yeah.
know. We're excited, we're starting, to study the pieces, we're meeting, I mean, like, I don't wanna go into any deep detail, but I would love to get people who are paying attention to select board meetings
Yep.
going, the more people that know, the better. Which again leads me to one other point in terms of communication, is we're up to 470 people for constant contact, which is great, but we've it hasn't moved, and I know it's the holidays, hard to move, but I do need people to be thinking about ways that we can spread this to other people, and we can move this, up some more for people. So,
This news will help.
what?
This news will help.
Yeah, I think this news will help. I'll put it on Facebook, I'll put it in Constant Contact, we'll put it on the town website, a little blurb.
So, we talked about prior, and I'm not gonna steal, Michelle brought this up to me earlier, and Michelle, I'll let you have the floor if you like, but why don't you talk about some ideas, and, I'll tell everyone my feedback, for my initial feedback, and then everyone can have a say in it, okay?
Sure, so piggybacking off of communication in general, I feel like there's 3 kind of things I think we should all start thinking about. One, I think the communication subcommittee has done a tremendous job, and I thank you guys so much for all of your work. But I do think we're at a place that we might want to start looking into the potential of a third party and partnering with a third party. And what does that look like? What does that mean? What can they bring? What's the cost? And I understand that an OPM might do some of that functionality, but I think when we look at, I think we need to be looking at what we can take from the previous project, right? And I feel like we have 2 facts we all know right now, right? We need to get to 2/3, and someone's gonna vote no. So we need to do the best we can to mitigate those no votes, either becoming yeses or becoming yeses would be lovely, right? So I feel like last time, if you talk to people, I think they'll tell you that the misinformation was very challenging for people, and when you have misinformation, it leads to doubt, and when you have doubt, it leads to lack of trust, and when you have that, it leads to a no vote, in my opinion. So I think we need to be looking at what it looks like to partner with a third party, a PR firm in communication, just to have a stronger strategy to kind of make sure that we are in the space of our factual information is reaching all the people that we want to reach. That was part one. I don't have a like, let's do that right this second, but I think that understanding we're gonna have a lot of work, we need to start looking into that as well. Part two was something that was thrown around last time, but it was thrown out a little bit later in the process. So I think it really didn't take shape, partially because it's a little bit of a lot of work. And Tim had thrown away around this concept of neighborhood captains, right? So again, you get your information from the person that you run into while you're walking your dog or from the bus stop. Like those are going to be a more trusted source of information than the internet. So if you had a space where you knew, so we know like 1,700 people showed up last time, and you can kind of like disseminate what that looks like on the amount that you would need. Like we can reach like 20 people, not us, but we would need to be able to find other people that are in these spaces around town that we know are now a trusted source for their neighborhood, street, whatever that group is, to be that person that's giving the factual information. And I think this piece is interesting. Again, it would be a lot of work, but I think it will function better as a two-way form of communication, because again, you're gonna have a conversation with somebody when you're walking your dog or you're at the bus stop. So they'll be able to say something like, I actually have concerns about X, Y, and Z. And maybe that the person they're talking to can't help them in that space, but they can relay it back to us. Like, and we would know then, like, we've got these captains out there and they're coming, 4 of them are coming back with the same concern. Like that's something we really need to pay attention to, instead of what we had last time, which was, I think people were sending information, but it was just hard to disseminate like what it was and how factual it was and where we are. I also think too, in this space, we can continue to have public forums. I think those add value, but that ask is you're asking the voter to come to us, right? In this space, I think it bridges some of those points of friction to be able to meet them a little bit more where they're at, to understand where they're at, where the the information gaps, and how can we help people get to yes. And then finally, understanding that we will likely have an article at town meeting. I think we should try to reach out to the moderator now. I know he has guidelines around what he's allowing people to present, but like the people that go to town meeting are going to be the same ones that show up to our special town meeting to vote. And I think the more information we can get in front of them on the MSBA and the project and the timeline and whatever other information we can share is going to be incredibly valuable. So again, I know our ask is going to be for a dollar amount for the feasibility study, but like if we can start working with, whoever now to try to get to a space where we can be able to give more information, factual information, helpful information, I think that's going to be really beneficial to us. Yeah. So those are my 3 things: the third party, grassroots neighborhood captains, and what we want to be saying at town meeting. And I think the town meeting thing is important because again, if it's December right now and town meetings in May, we really don't have that many meetings together to figure out what information we want to be sharing and what that looks like.
Thanks, Michelle. So I'll give you my opinions that I gave you, but generally, the information for town meeting, I think, is fairly straightforward. It's figure out how much it's going to cost to complete our feasibility study, how much money do we have, and then ask for that, right? So, reaching out to Mike, I believe, no problem. And again, I think that the town's been very supportive of the last 2 meetings with kind of a lot of money asking for, it was more of a just in case. Now we have some concrete, we're going to do this. So I'm a little less concerned about that.
Two sources or 2 funds. 1, money for feasibility study, and 2, money as a set aside to help lower costs
Yeah, 3
down the road.
Yeah, you're right.
So the money's been,
Yeah.
tons and tons, but a fair amount of money's been coming.
But to your point, having a conversation about that, but really I think we should go to Christine once that warrant article is drafted. The third party communication, I'm all for, 100%. I think you guys are doing awesome, and I would love for you not to stop because it's really helping us. I think it's fairly premature to get into that right now. I know there's been some funds been used for other committees in town, and it's been very successful. So I'm all for it. There's costs to it, obviously. If it's 15, 20, whatever the number is, I think it's probably a small drop in the bucket when it comes to the overall cost of what we're doing here. But I do feel like, yes, the OPM would do that. I will tell you, not to throw all the OPM under the bus, but that wasn't their strength. And we kind of relied on it. We shouldn't. So I'm off the, those are just my quick sense on your thing. So I pretty much on board with what you're saying. I think the timing of that, of both probably, moderating will probably be in the next couple of months, and then once we have a warrant article, then we can actually draft, right? Anyone else?
So just a question, the OPM and a potential PR person, so we've kicked this around already of doing this. How closely do they work together, and do we do the PR person? Or do we wait, find an OPM and see what the OPM wants? Do they work together very closely? So if we hire someone and they're like this, you know, that's not good. So do you wait, or do we just? I just don't know how close those two people are as far as a working relationship.
Yeah, so my only experience at this is the last time we did it. And I would say we wait, only because most of the OPMs that are on the MSBA list have worked with some of these firms prior. And some work really great together, and some don't probably.
Okay.
So if you're gonna hire a trusted partner to work you through this process, we want them to work well with them. The answer to your first question is they both work for us. So the information will come from us, and then we would give approvals and stuff to the OPM and says, hey, yeah, you could say that, do this, we want to do this, how do we do that? Again, just my opinion.
So they're not a couple of standalones, they gotta work together.
Well, they are, but
But they've
we're
gotta-
kind of triangle, right?
Yep. It's gotta all work. Yep, okay.
Did those people come to your prior SBC meetings the last time around? Did they attend
The
your? meetings?
OPMs,
Yeah, and or the PR,
we didn't have a PR firm.
well, the PR for the OPM, whoever it was you said.
We didn't have, they did themselves.
They did themselves.
They did it themselves.
They ran the meetings. Once you hire an OPM, they will run the meetings. They will set the agendas. They will set timelines. They will set schedules.
Yeah.
It's very, that's kind of what they're good at. They're project managers, really.
Yeah.
It's a large, long process. They just break it down into them parts. They ran our public forums. Again, some of it was really well done. Other things we rushed through we shouldn't have. Other things, there were some mistakes made. That's how we feel. So I think a PR firm can only help us not fail in those spots again.
And I think it'll be important because right now there's 18 people in this room. So being in the field of psychology for the past 23 years, I feel like everybody in this room could write a summary of this meeting. And no one's going to be a liar. It's going to be everybody's hearing it and experiencing it through their lens. So I think just in general, like the misinformation, like I think people that voted no had their reasons. And they might have had the same information on certain topics, but interpreted it differently or valued different pieces of it differently. So I think if we're trying to build a bridge with the no votes, to Michelle's point, we have to start approaching how they felt or the information they used coming to the conclusion that they did, and not labeling it sort of with a word that has a negative connotation. Yes, were there parts of misinformation? I don't want to speak to that, but I think if we're trying to build bridges, we know the town wants a new school. We know they want it at Dale. We've gotten that far. But I think to really make this, none of us want to be sitting here and have it fail again, right? And if it fails again, trying to find an OPM and everybody else, like, good luck to the town, right? Because it's, no one's gonna want to do it. So
Well, thank God
I
Mike
feel-
promised to keep doing this.
So I just feel like we have to,
My wife is texting me, what do you think?
so I think the PR firm is important, and I just think the words that we use to describe how people felt last time are just equally important, because we want them to engage with us, and we want the captains to be telling us people's concerns, and we want to value their feedback, even if it's feedback we don't want to hear. And I think that's a key component that a PR firm will help, because I don't think that happened the last time. And I voted yes. But
You know, I think it's really well said. I think we want to hear all feedback, and I think people in this room are all gonna be like, hey, we want a school, yes, go, go, go. We need to hear from them. Well, what about this? What about that? I want that. That's the stuff we need to pick up on. And I agree, I think the PR firm will help with that. I'm not saying we need to like succumb to every wish and need of every resident, but the majority of people are saying this needs to be a net zero building. Guess what? We should probably spend the money to design a net zero building. Okay, that's just kind of like, that's one example of things that the decisions we'll have to make. So, that's, I agree. And I think, awesome points, Michelle. Bob, I'm with you. I think that's probably module 2 when we really start engaging in that. And that's where the OPM will come in and kind of lead us in a direction. Here are 3 people I've worked for before. Here's what they cost. Here's what they can do for you. You kind of cherry pick the things that we think we need and go from there. Yeah. I mean, we're not to vote on it or anything like that, but any other concerns or questions on that? I think it's a great idea.
I was just, in the practical side of it, in terms of getting neighborhood captains, we talked about this before, and I swear there's somebody here. Steve from Norwood.
Yep.
With the team captains.
Yep.
You talked about that, right? Didn't you?
Yeah. So when Norwood High School was built, that's got to be 12 years ago now. They really, again, in the town, back in that time, it was, $100 million, which sounds great for high schools now, but it was a lot of money, back that time. So what they decided to do was the committee, it did exactly what Michelle said. They got people, that they knew would, give information. They might not know everything, but then there were flyers as well, that they would hand out with the bulleted points. So everybody would get the same information, had a common understanding for it, but would also be able to relay the message back exactly like, I think it was a huge part in, it was ratified pretty overwhelmingly in Norwood. So I'm not sure if they did it. They just got the middle school pass through. It's actually going to open up next year, and that's another MSBA building that they have now. I'm not sure if they did the neighborhood captains. My guys were a little bit older, but when my guys were going to the high school, Kelly and I participated in that. And again, like Michelle said, in our town we had, 5 to 8 streets or whatever it was, and that's just kind of, we went down on Saturday and Sundays, just kind of knocking on doors. You have any questions, anything we can help answer? Here's just a flyer, take a look at it.
With the website and the information and all that good stuff.
Yeah, nothing overwhelming.
Just
Because
facts.
in like any town, you have all different age levels, and some people, don't want to tax, whatever the case may be. But it was a great procedure and worked out well in that case.
And also trying to connect with the parents that maybe don't have kids in the school system yet, because
Absolutely.
they're gonna be the ones that are in the school. Or
Absolutely.
you're renovating school.
Yeah. And it might be a good idea if you're gonna have the captains there, maybe to have them, once they're decided, like have them in for a night and just see if they have questions, that you can kind of answer. Because to your point, Michelle, they might not know every answer, which is perfectly fine. They're not supposed to, but then they can at least be able to answer, Meredith, like you said, for those people that maybe are a little skeptical of it, totally understanding. If they are, just give them some information.
So are you looking for the communication subcommittee to start sort of mapping this out in terms of looking at the town and areas and captains, or is the
So
school
I
committee
should,
gonna do this?
well, so I should have noted that I actually feel like so again, these were kind of concepts for us to start thinking about. I actually feel like the scope of work of this is pretty big, and we should be looking at maybe like if there's additional people that have spoken to us that want to help in that space, and almost getting like a little committee of people who can help run this, like, you know what I mean, like 2 or 3, and then those are people that would run it, but they would, be able to come report to us or bring the captains to report to us. I'm open to what everybody wants to do, but again, understanding that we're gonna have a lot of work with what we have to do, but that this piece is vital to us getting it passed. I think that's a space that we could explore, but I'm open to whatever you want.
I call it a working group that works. with
Sure, there you
communications
go.
activities.
Okay, I'm just.
So you want to start taking names, maybe?
Yeah, I'm just, in the practical piece of it, I don't wanna come a month later, and we're still talking about it in concept
Yep.
instead of actually doing
Doing it, yep.
something. I mean, I can put in a constant contact thing, hey, we're thinking of putting neighborhood captains out there to help us spread news. If you're interested, email me or something.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do that, or is it something that the school committee wants to do? I'm just.
I'm not gonna speak on behalf of the school committee, but I think
Okay.
this is an SBC like
Yeah.
news or, you know, the school project thing, right? Not necessarily the school committee specific.
So the communication subcommittee, this is part of communications, is something that if this committee here says the communication subcommittee should take it and run with it, then you should take it and run with it, or you could go design it out and come back and say, hey, I planned it out.
Yeah,
I think you should say yes and let's do this,
so, you know, I think it's a great idea. I think a little structure behind it might be, depends, if you get 15 people that say, I wanna help, well, that's a big number, in my opinion. And that would, you could cover the town pretty, not easily, but pretty closely with 15 people. If you get 2, well, we need more, right? So, why don't we do this? Why don't we, I think asking for help is never a bad thing. Start there, okay? I would also tell you that, if it gets to be, Michelle and I live in the same neighborhood, right? So the two of us volunteer. Like, okay, how's that work out? Like, we're literally at the same bus stop. Like, you know, any of our kids.
Sorry to cut you guys off. I mean, I think this is maybe what I'm envisioning you guys thinking about is, I don't want to, maybe it doesn't have to be specifically neighborhood or street captains, but I think it's a, you know, Mike, and I think Michelle, you were probably involved last time. I can't remember all the folks who were on the Yes at Wheelock campaign, as opposed to the other one. I think that's kind of what you're getting at, needing, and I think having it take the form of, you know, having folks go out in the neighborhood. I remember in between one of the votes last time, I was so pissed off at the first one. I went out and spent $500 on flyers and helped organize a bunch of people to go door to door and do some of this. I enjoyed it. Didn't ultimately be successful, but I think that I think it's just, what's the kind of connection between the SBC and the community? It's really what you're going for, right? I mean,
It's really,
it can take a lot of forms, but I think it could be kind of a cohesive thing of how do people find information? Who can you talk to in your neighborhood, or that's your friend, or, oh, I know somebody who's interested in the schools, and every time we pick up the kids, you know, they mention or ask a question about it.
How about we do this, about,
And I don't know that it needs to be stood up immediately either, but I think, you know, getting folks who kind of know what's going on here to be able to share
citizens
with everybody else. Yeah.
is what I get you saying, that it's a balance between the two. But I don't, I also think we should let the news, the positive news, be the spotlight. Let people soak that in, and in January, start our class. That's what I was thinking, you know. How about if the subcommittee, we'll spend some time sort of, kind of roughly planning how it could be done? And I'm not saying we're gonna do the whole thing, but maybe we'll sort of roughly plan it.
yeah,
Because we can use our current methods when we get a plan to start sending it out, and then we'll see where it could go from there. But just, let's do that, because I kind of agree. I don't wanna, we got really good news right now. I want as many people in the community to hear it. I mean, totally. But we'll start, we're meeting tonight in 2 minutes, so we'll start sort of, if we're gonna do this, what kind of ways do you think you could do it? How about that?
that's great. I like where, like, all the whole conversation's going. Tilly brought up a good point in, probably a little premature, because we don't have a ton of information other than the news we received this week, right? That said, we are gonna go to the town and ask for money in May. So, like, there's a little bit there that probably get out, and I know, you know, it'll be on the line, most people will read that, and that's great. But once module 2 starts and you hire that OPM, and you're really getting into the nitty gritty, I mean, the goal is to solicit feedback, and pump out information, like factual information. That's kind of how, if we're doing this, that's kind of what we're looking for, right? Good, bad, negative, positive feedback, as well as information of where we're at. That's kind of the goal, right? And I think, like you said, everyone's going to read it differently, and that's fine. tell us why you don't agree with it, or that's what we need to do. And we need to like process that and so I think if we have help doing that, we'll get to the bottom of a lot of the no's or a lot of the antis early, and we can kind of veer off and make some changes or do what we have to do, because we need a school. But I think it's great, and what you propose to do on the subcommittee is perfect. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Good points, Michelle, to start that. Thank you. What else did you have on the? I assume we probably got to most of your stuff.
Yeah, all we did was put out the last update, which you all could see or did see. So we didn't have anything new other than, what comes up tonight that we will work on, this evening, when this meeting is done.
Want to make sure we didn't have any.
Yes, if anyone wants to be in our video tonight, our videos are big hits, and we do a little wrap up of the meeting.
Carolyn on it.
Can I just mention one thing?
Yeah, please.
Just semantics, and that if you're gonna talk about hiring a third party, I would use the word communications consultant instead of PR. Because PR can have a negative connotation. And I'm speaking as someone who's trained in PR. Sometimes people look at it as manipulation, deceptive practices, but I think if you use a communications consultant, if everybody uses that language,
But it's the same thing, right?
not necessarily.
I don't disagree with that. I don't care what we call it. We just need help getting information.
Yeah.
Okay. What? Anything else? Yeah, I don't know that stuff very much. I'm happy to call it. Really, like I said, we need feedback, right? And then when we get it, we need to understand what's real and what's not, right? It's not the one-offs. Right. It's the groups of people who are really upset about something because we, found a dinosaur bone underneath, the old gym or something. You know what I mean? That'll be bad joke that easily could happen, right?
You never know, really, what's involved.
I know, right?
That could
You
give
pay
us.
for some of the.
Hey, that'll pay for that.
All right, that's, so January 8th is the next meeting, and Christina, we're gonna be on that docket for the 7th?
I'm putting on the stuff for the stuff.
Okay. All right, good stuff. 1 hour. Good news.
Hey,
Yes. Bill, go ahead.
hey, Mike.
Yes.
Yeah, this will be getting way in front of our skis here, but I just looked on the train. The MSBA board meetings are like April 30th, and then the next one's not till the end of June. And so, yeah, as we think about going through this process, I think we're going to want to pick up time where we can, just given the kind of level of urgency to get this project done. And so as you think about like missing April, waiting till June, and then you're in the summer, like there could be value to hitting that. So I guess my only kind of comment would be, to the extent we need to figure out having the funding thing, settled for April 30th versus the town meeting in the first week of May, may want to have those discussions with whoever we need to have those with. Like, I don't know if we could use the extra $500,000 set aside as part of that or whatever, but, just something simple like that, you can pick up 2 to 4 months.
I like the way you're thinking.
So,
I don't know if there's an avenue there though, Christine.
MSBA kind of dictates that
Yeah, I don't
timeline.
know if we're gonna be able to tell them.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll be able to tell them on that.
What we can do is complete all 7 steps
We
of
definitely-
section 1 as fast as
Mhm.
possible.
Mhm.
So
I think that's the part we.
So when we start on
Yeah.
April,
yeah, so if we start in April, which is really the timeline, the May warrant article is fine timing, right? It's the next month.
Mhm.
And then if we can have our ducks in a row, like shortly thereafter, I mean, that puts us in the best position to move forward faster. Right? We've submitted everything. I don't know, I mean, I'm sure they'll say, okay, give us a month or two or whatever it may be, but it may not be the next board meeting, but hopefully it's the subsequent one after that. And I don't know how that works. I do know that they have only a certain amount of money per year to spend, right?
Right.
And that's already budgeted for 25. I can tell you that. Probably happened, most of the 26 as well. So that's the one, that's how it goes. Well, they don't really spend the money with us until construction at this point.
Right.
Okay. I like where your brain's at, Bill. I think we need to get the warrant passed in May, and then finish module 1. Let's go through Friday.
Yeah, when Jeff said April start, I wasn't sure if that meant that we could get out of the eligibility period in April if we were all done,
No,
or if it's, we can't even start the eligibility period until April.
down the ladder.
Okay, then my point is useless. But as we go along, I think hitting those, you essentially lose 2 months per deadline you miss. So we gotta just be cognizant of that.
Yeah, and the last time, I will tell you, COVID happened and we pushed back some deadlines and they were fine with it, but, I'll make sure we need to make sure we don't do it.
Then that's Bill.
Yeah.
Bill, can you stay on for the subcommittee meeting?
Yeah, I may have to drop for a second, but I'll dive back in as soon as I can.
Okay, it'll be the same link. It might be quiet for a few minutes as we shift over, but we've been using the exact same link that this part is on.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
All right, so, homework, feasibility study and MSBA website reviews, right? Have a great holiday, everybody.
You too.
Good news, and I'll send you guys some emails, over the next couple weeks, just after those meetings.
You going out for drinks?
I'd love to.
Yeah. Want a motion to adjourn?
Oh, we should do that.
You know, just
Bob,
for the,
Bob did it, anyone want to second it?
Second.
Leo, you wanna start?
Leo Brown, yes.
Teresa Davis, Caroline Casey, yes.
John Messina, yes.
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Bob Meany, yes?
Peter Michelson, yes.
Robert Word, yes. Tony Papantoni, yes.
Meredith Chamberlain, yes.
Mike Weber, yes.
Yeah, have a great holiday.